It is to deny what the history of the world tells us is true, to suppose that men of ambition and talents will not continue to spring up amongst us. Lincoln is saying, if you have just rampant lawlessness and the law-abiding good people in the world are looking around and saying, what's in it for me? That opens the door to the possibility that someone who's ambitious, who's potentially tyrannical, can come in and say, I've got the answer. And the answer is power for me. I am going to save you from this chaos and this violence. What think you these places would satisfy an Alexander, a Caesar, or a Napoleon? Never. Towering genius disdains a beaten path. He's saying for ambitious men, like, will they be able to be satisfied in just maintaining the good thing that the founders built? Most certainly it cannot. Is it unreasonable then to expect that some man possessed of the loftiest genius coupled with ambition sufficient to push it to its utmost stretch will at some time spring up among us? And when such a one does, it will require the people to be united with each other, attached to the government and laws, and generally intelligent to successfully frustrate his designs. At the time when the United States was founded, they believed they were participating in this great, unprecedented experiment. But he says the experiment has largely succeeded. And so here we are. What are people of passion, people who want to make a difference? What are they going to commit themselves now that the nation is established? What happens when really ambitious men come forward who aren't content with just being a member of the legislature of Illinois or just being a lawyer, people who want more than that? He worries that people like that are going to look at what has succeeded about the United States and want to tear it down, that they're going to see that the only way they can make a difference is by destroying what previous generations have constructed. So it's a pretty urgent call for Americans to commit themselves to law, the Constitution, and also reason, that it's critically important that people subordinate their passions to reason.
Ben Franklin, after the Constitution had been completed, he's reported to have told a woman who asked him, "So, Mr. Franklin, what kind of government do we have?" And he says, "A republic, if you can keep it." Can we make it? Can we keep it? Can we keep the democracy? And the Lyceum address is a moment in time. It's a snapshot where Lincoln says, look at this photo. We're losing it. We're losing this democracy right now. It's happening before our eyes. And if we're not careful, we'll lose it completely.
The key lesson of Lincoln's Lyceum address is that violence is not the answer. That no matter how much you may disagree with an opponent, in a representative government, resorting to arms is the worst thing you can do. That our republic has a system of law in place, and that the rule of law should be above any monarch, any tyrant, any strongman.
When we look at why Lincoln concludes with George Washington in the Lyceum address, he says we need our Washington to emerge. What's Washington? Who is Washington? Is he the general who crosses the Delaware River? Is he the general who inspires troops at Valley Forge? Alexander, Caesar, Napoleon, the tyrants that Lincoln references at the Lyceum address, they could have done anything Washington did on the battlefield, and they did, and more, arguably. But what they could not do, the greatest gift Washington gives, is he stepped away from power. Personal restraint. To have all that power and greatness before you and to say, you know what? That's enough. It's someone else's turn.
Lincoln's Lyceum address was published in the Sangamon Journal, the complete text, the week after he presented it. The impact at the time, it's very hard to know. Nobody sent in letters to the editor. There wasn't compliment. There wasn't criticism. It was silent. That was very common. The response subsequently has been to see it as a really key touchstone moment for looking at the ways that Lincoln's public speech evolved through his career.
I think the real contribution Lincoln makes, frankly, is for us today. It's for us to review the Lyceum Address as not just a part of the historical archive or a footnote to Lincoln's career, but what does it say to us? We're going to have, in a large democracy like ours, groups, ideas, ideologies that we really profoundly disagree with, maybe even revile. Nevertheless, in a multiracial democracy, we have to abide them. And if we disagree, we have to root them out, not through violence, but through discourse, exercising our rights, freedom of speech, through the democratic process. That's the difference. That's the gift of the Lyceum Address in many ways.
The reason why Lincoln's words are so timeless is because the issues that he addressed in his speeches still live on with us. It is so important for us to read some of those messages and realize that these issues are not current, that they've not just been made up today, that they've been with us for a long time, and that Lincoln was one of the first presidents to address them head on in all his speeches, starting with the Lyceum Address, ending with his second inaugural address a month before he is assassinated. He is still talking about these issues. There's a reason why I think we continue to revere Lincoln and that each generation discovers Lincoln, because his words on the value of our institutions, on the value of our democracy, are timeless.